God of War Ragnarök made me feel like a degenerate. It's been a long time since I've spent an entire weekend playing a video game. I have responsibilities, I have bills to pay, dishes to wash. So tell me why when God of War Ragnarök came out, I played this game for 15 hours straight. Heads up, I'm about to spoil this whole damn game, so if you have a problem with that, this is your warning.
Skedaddle! Get the f*** out of here! Skedaddle!
God of War 2018 was great. I reviewed it on my channel. I called it the best game on the PlayStation 4. So naturally, I was very excited for Ragnarök. You know, I was watching all of the development videos. I wanted as many nuggets of information about this game as I could get my hands on. I even watched that promo video with the celebrities where they had them with their kids talking about like fatherhood and parenthood and all that stuff. And they had like Ben Stiller dressed up as Kratos when John Travolta was right there. I'm guessing he didn't want to do it, but I feel like he would have been the obvious choice. Santa Monica Studio is right up there with Naughty Dog in their ability to make truly cinematic gaming experiences. They've always been good at starting these games off with a bang, and Ragnarök is no exception. In the first 2 hours, you fought Freya, Thor, a bear. Turns out the bear is Atreus, and the adventure just keeps going. It's non-stop. The story of this game is massive. The most ambitious story in a God of War game to date. So many moving parts that all culminate in like the conclusion being Ragnarök. Now, before I get into it, I do want to shout out a video I saw by Endless Jess called God of War Was Always Deep, You Cowards, because a common sentiment we heard around the time that God of War 2018 released was that prior to the game, the series was a collection of like shallow hack and slashes featuring a one-dimensional protagonist in Kratos.
This depth and complexity transforms Kratos from the previous God of War games as flat embodiment of the bloodthirsty warrior cliché into an internally conflicted father.
And now the series had finally matured and was exploring deep themes. Bro, they literally had a QuickTime event where the objective was to abandon your daughter while she was begging you not to leave her. Okay, I'm not saying it's the most, you know, tasteful implementation, but if that's not deep, I don't know what is. The modern God of War games, while in a sense being a reimagination of Kratos, are also a continuation of a character who was already very fleshed out and very in-depth. Now, a big motif in Ragnarök is the relationships between the characters. This is an ensemble cast game. Of course, you have the main relationship, which is the one between Kratos and Atreus. Atreus is getting older and he's trying to find his own way in the world. Meanwhile, Kratos is more concerned with keeping his son safe, you know, and sparing him from the brutality he had to face when he was his age.
I have tried to walk this path with you. We follow your every whim.
But you don't believe in any of it.
And still I follow.
And so what you end up with is like a father and a son that truly love each other, but ultimately butt heads because they want different things. I won't lie though, at many points, Atreus was being a little brat.
Just leave me alone.
Listen.
Let go of me.
Listen.
Let go.
On top of that, you also have so many different relationship dynamics going on simultaneously. You have the sibling dynamic between Sindri and Brock, Freyr and Freyr. I did not have a brain aneurysm there. That's what they're called. You have the friendships both old and new. And in the case of Kratos and Freyr, you have a broken friendship that was able to ultimately be mended through a shared cause and mutual understanding. You have the spousal relationships. Kratos is still mourning for his past wife, while also coming to terms with the fact that she kept a lot of things from him that he's now discovering in this game. Freyr, on the other hand, is trying to heal from the pain of her abusive marriage with Odin, you know, freeing herself both mentally and physically. Odin acts as an alternative paternal figure to Atreus, who seemingly gives him much more credit and freedom than his real father does. In this way, Odin plays the role of the charismatic, cool uncle or grandfather in Atreus' life, and it leads to Atreus not being so sure why everybody seems to hate this guy so much. Oh, he can't be that bad. He's nice to me. Thrud is struggling to uphold a positive relationship with her alcoholic father, who himself drinks as a way to numb the pain caused to him by his abusive father. I know some people wanted Odin to have a more menacing affect, but I think it actually works quite well to have him look a bit smaller and shrunken, you know, because it creates this contrast between, you know, this person who is the All-Father, the God of gods, but appears to be physically feeble, especially in comparison to someone who's so towering as his son, Thor. For me, it showcased power through cunning and authority rather than through brute strength. Now, there are a few story moments in this game that I absolutely have to talk about. The first is when Freya breaks the roots of the world tree in order to free herself from Odin's curse. We watch as she struggles to break the bonds of her abuser, but the important thing is Kratos does not help her. He knows that she needs to do this alone. This is her journey. I think the instinct of anyone in that moment would be to, you know, sort of help the damsel in distress in a sense, but I was very happy to see that Kratos stayed out of it and recognized how much of a moment this was for Freya herself. And ultimately, I think that was absolutely the right choice to make. Although he obviously did help her with the whole, you know, need-ho thing, but still. The second is when they encountered the Norns, the prophecy tellers. These three beings toy with the gods and make them realize how small they really are without raising a fist. They reveal that their prophecies are not predetermined. They are not set in stone. They are merely predictions that tend to be correct because of the predictability of the character's actions. And in this, they highlight a key theme of the game, which is that destiny is not set in stone. We have the power to decide our own fates, but we are often bound by our own patterns of behavior.
You are the sum of your choices, nothing more. And because your choices never change, you will learn that Heimdall intends to kill your son in Asgard, and you will do what you do best. And then Ragnarök.
The skies burn, the curtains fall. Exunt omni.
Heimdall.
Again, he misses the point.
Frankly, the Norns made them look stupid. It's only a brief moment in the game, and that's the only time we get to see the Norns, but they make such a large impact. You know, it's a real turning point for the characters, and that coupled with the environment, the visuals, the music kicking in. That's the first time we hear the Ragnarök theme from the soundtrack, I'm pretty sure. It just makes for an incredible scene, and actually my favorite scene in the entire game. Of course, we're not just here to talk about the story though. The gameplay is where it's at. I played on Give Me God of War, the hardest difficulty setting, because my chat bullied me for playing the previous game on the medium setting. Listen, I like a balanced experience. I think it's completely reasonable to play on medium, but my chat wasn't having it. Playing on this difficulty was very hard, but I find that when you play games on their hardest difficulty, as long as they are designed well and designed with that difficulty in mind, I'm looking at you, A Plague Tale Requiem, playing a game on the hardest difficulty can be really rewarding because it forces you to learn every inch of the game's mechanics and how it works. The combat in this game, like most other things, was scaled up massively. Not only is there a whole new weapon, which is super satisfying to use, especially against Heimdall. Alright, there we go. Just making sure, Anna. Just making sure. Don't worry about it. But there are so many more upgrades and special attacks available. You get to play as Atreus, who, while not as physically strong as Kratos, more than makes up for it with his agility and the ranged bow attacks. You also get to have Brock and Sindri as combat companions on a few missions, as well as Freya, who eventually becomes your companion for a long time after she's not trying to kill you anymore. Not only does this make the gameplay more fun, but it really helps to build the relationships between these characters. They're not just people you talk to during cutscenes or people you talk to when you're upgrading your armor. They actually help you. Santa Monica definitely listened to the feedback about bosses from the first game. Now, personally, I had no problem with the bosses. I didn't know people had an issue with how many times the trolls were reused, or the fact that there weren't as many like epic boss fights as there were in games like God of War 3, for example. But they said, oh, you want variety? Bet. Dreki, elves, travelers, raiders, Bergtras, ogres, stalkers, wolvers, draugrs, phantoms. F the phantoms, for real though. Like, those things were so tedious to fight. You're just doing the same thing over and over again, and then you have to take out these towers, and it's like, where are the freaking towers, bro? And if you don't take them out in time, you have to do it again. It was so long. Oh my god. But still, you can't deny the variety. The puzzles were as good as ever, but I do wish the companions would just be quiet. They spoil the puzzles way too quickly. You'll be surveying the landscape for like 2 seconds, and then they'll be like, well, I think...
Oh my god, can you let me do what I need to do?
Do I really need to talk about how beautiful this game is? Like, I don't think so. It's a work of art. Just look at it. Look at it. The landscapes, the textures, the particle effects. Every inch of this game has attention to detail. The animation is stellar and complements the award-winning performances being put on by the actors here. I know Christopher Judge went on for 10 hours at the Game Awards, but he earned it. In fact, the whole cast did. There should actually be an ensemble cast award because everybody brought it in this game. Shout out to ProZD, aka Sungwon Cho. Like, when I found out he was in this game, I was honestly so happy. The music by Bear McCreary. Oh my god, dude. I have Ragnarok and Bear's Lament, or should I say Rabe's Lament, on loop. This is the definition of a blockbuster game. I was telling my friends, playing this game made me grateful to be alive. Like, imagine showing someone from 20 years ago this game, you know, and showing them that this is what games could be in the future, would be in the future. I feel like it would blow their mind. Now, I do have one gripe with this game that I want to talk about, and that is Ragnarok. I was expecting Ragnarok to be more significant than it ultimately ended up being in this game. It turns out Ragnarok was really just the ending of the game. I thought we were going to spend a significant amount of time in Ragnarok. You know, in real life, wars can last for years and years, but in this game, Ragnarok lasted for an afternoon. I would have liked to have seen more of the impact of Ragnarok, you know, the death, the destruction. I wanted to see the consequences that Kratos was trying to spare Atreus from seeing. He spends the whole game, but especially the segment where he's helping out Freya, talking about how he doesn't want Atreus to see war. He doesn't want him to have to go through the experiences that he went through when he was Atreus' age. But, you know, ultimately Ragnarok arrives all the same. And so if Ragnarok is gonna happen nonetheless,
I would like to see it.
especially with all the realms coming together in Asgard, I was expecting a Lord of the Rings style all-out battle. And what we got instead was still great, but it definitely didn't measure up to the expectations that I felt had been set throughout the game. I mean, for goodness sake, the World Serpent was fighting Thor! And we only got to see it in the distance. Now, my guess is that they ran out of development time to really make the ending as epic as it could have been. And I think this contributes to another issue I had with the ending, which is that I wish I hated Odin more. I know he killed Brock, and I know he killed Thor. But I still needed more. I needed more of a reason to hate this guy. I needed them to King Joffrey this guy. Like, make me want to put his head on a stick. They put so much time when you're playing as Atreus into making him appear likable and reasonable and like an okay guy that they really need to like rein that in at the end so that you really feel like, you've got to pay. And I just feel like they didn't quite do that. And that's not to say the final fight against Odin felt unmotivated or that it wasn't cool. No, it definitely was. But it just felt like there was something missing. Also, Freyr deciding to sacrifice himself at the end by holding back Surtur was so dumb. That was the most unnecessary character death in this entire game. Literally, the time spent convincing his sister to abandon him could have been spent running to the portal. In fact, he demonstrated just moments before that he could fly. What was actually the point? We already had a powerful character death with Brock. We actually did not need this. Speaking of which, shout out to Brock, man. Like, honestly, one of my favorite characters, just a legend for real. Anyway, God of War Ragnarok was freaking fantastic and honestly worth every penny. I feel like this is one of the only games where I've played it and I've been like, damn, I would have happily paid more money for this, honestly. So, god damn it. Santa Monica Studio. You did it again. Flipping out, that's all I wanted to say.